I would say that there's a lot of emotions connected to it. Shame, fear, like a fear of changing course, like rigidity in the way that life is structured, and like this deep need for control, anxiety around the food choices and what would it mean to deviate from that plan. It's very like restrictive rather than expansive now. And it's not, again, it comes back to the choice factor. So if I see a client who is excited about clean eating and is choosing like, oh, what can I add in this week that I haven't tried last week? Like that's very expansive. And with orthorexia, it's not just about food either. It's usually comes along with like over exercising. It usually comes along with a lot of perfectionism, overthinking, or utilizing. Like the reason like people get so attached to it and they wouldn't necessarily know this, it's very subconscious oftentimes, but it's the fear of what is underneath it, right? It's like a layer between you and something that needs to kind of get quote unquote dealt with.
Welcome to Hopeful and Wholesome, the show where ambitious women come home to their bodies. I'm your host, Hope Pedraza, and I'm a functional practitioner, human design guide, and expert on all things energy, and your partner in decoding the language of your body. This is your space to reconnect with your body's wisdom, reclaim your energy, and rise into alignment in your health, your business, and your life. Because thriving isn't about pushing harder, it's about learning to listen deeper. So let's dive in because your next breakthrough starts right now. All right, y'all, I'm here with Carly. Thanks so much for joining us today, Carly.
My pleasure.
I'm excited for this conversation. So I want to just jump right in. And I know you have a story to share, and I want to get to that. But for those listening who have looked at the title and are maybe not exactly sure what we're talking about, can you give a definition or a description, just how you would explain orthorexia? What is that?
I would say it is an eating disorder. It's an unhealthy obsession with being healthy would be the most simplified definition of it. And for people who like don't resonate with what it's like to have an eating disorder, it's like this like obsessive compulsive component to it. So it's not just about choosing to have a clean lifestyle. It almost has this sense of not being in control of it because it's controlling you.
Yeah. So I would love to hear your story. Do you have your own journey with orthorexia you can share with us?
I'd say I'll start at like the chapter, my most recent chapter, which was life was going pretty good. I had kind of weaned myself off of antidepressants and anti-anxiety medications. And then I had a 12-year teaching career, and I had just like switched to a local public school. That was like a dream school to be working at, and like life was going good. But I was still feeling like a little on the flat side. But at the same time, I was starting to feel like really motivated because like, oh, look, I just got myself resourced up and I'm coming off these medications. And so I was like, I don't know. I just had this thought of like, I just want to do like a sugar, anti-sugar. Like I want to wean myself off of sugar. Mm-hmm. And I was trying to like find people to do that with, and nobody would do it with me. And then all of a sudden on like Facebook, one of my now friends was doing like a week-long ditch the sugar like challenge thing. And I was like, well, that's timely. I joined that, and that then led me to joining a group program, which is with she and her, one of my other friends, is our functional diagnostic nutrition practitioners, right? So that was sort of like my gateway into the functional health world. I'm now a functional diagnostic nutrition practitioner because of the benefits that I had in that program. It was really interesting because at the beginning, I started kind of noticing like at the beginning of the program, I started noticing like these thoughts coming up around food. And, we were getting taught how to like look at the labels and have discernment and what types of sugars to be looking for. It wasn't like the all or nothing. It was these are the swaps. So they were doing everything like right, like the way it swaps. It's not really a restrictive mentality. It's like crowding it out. What can we add into the diet? But for some reason, I just started noticing like thoughts coming up around it, and I couldn't quite pin what was happening and what was feeling, but it felt very, very familiar. And then as I kept working through the functional health stuff, the way that I view it is, I think what was happening was a lot of like neuroinflammation was coming down. I was starting to feel very strong. I was starting to have a lot of energy. I was feeling very motivated. I was, liking who I was becoming. I was becoming somebody who has all these ideas and likes to like work out and eats clean. And I just like the persona of who I was becoming was somebody I would like always would have aspired to be. And with that, I really, again, I think like the neuroinflammation was coming down, and I just started to like pop out into my mind, like memories that I had buried in my subconscious, like, and, with a combination of coming off of antidepressants, and, they kind of like mute your mental body. But what I didn't really realize was that it also kind of mutes your physical body. So I was also becoming like more symptomatic in terms of like gut health and sensitivities to food. And I was getting very anxious, like very, like really anxious and things like that. So these like repressed memories started to pop back up. And instead of like confronting or explaining to anyone that these memories were popping up and I didn't know what to do about them, it just started to manifest into complete control over needing to be clean and needing to be pure. And like at the time, I didn't really understand what was happening. Again, I was like really proud of it. Like it was very like almost, you become almost possessive of it, right?
Sure.
It's like you don't want anyone to like take it from you. Like, so that's how I ended up with an eating disorder. I had an eating disorder in the past that was like, I would, not to minimize myself, but it was like minor in the fact that it only lasted like a month or two. And then life like shifted for me radically, and I just like kind of dissipated on its own. And I was also put on medications and things like that. And so what I've learned now with the work that I do is that when we are like triggered or like re-traumatized or go through like C-PTSD type flare-ups, it's the coping mechanism that we utilized at the original events of the trauma, like re pops up. And so like it might look slightly different, but it'll show up the same way. So like if the person had a freeze response or, turned to addiction and things like that, it's not going to be a new coping mechanism. It's going to be a reiteration of the same coping mechanisms.
That makes a lot of sense. So I guess explain, because this conversation is always so interesting to me because I've experienced this before too, and I've had disordered eating behavior before, and like the orthorexia thing is definitely a thing for a long time. And there's this fine line between eating healthy and then going all the way to the other end, the extreme. So can you give, and you just gave a really good explanation from your own life, but I think sometimes it's, you're like, you kind of like what you said, like it was like you want to hold on to this piece because it's like, oh no, I eat clean, but I think sometimes we just become clouded by our own perception of ourselves that we can't see through, you know what I mean? So can you give some, maybe you're from your own or from people you've worked with, just signs that we could be headed down that path, or maybe already are down that path of orthorexia?
Yeah, I would say that there's a lot of emotions connected to it. Shame, fear, like a fear of changing course, like rigidity in the way that life is structured, and like this deep need for control, anxiety around the food choices and what would it mean to deviate from that plan. It's very like restrictive rather than expansive now. And it's not, again, it comes back to the choice factor. So if I see a client who is excited about clean eating and is choosing like, oh, what can I add in this week that I haven't tried last week? Like that's very expansive. And with orthorexia, it's not just about food either. It's usually comes along with like over exercising. It usually comes along with a lot of perfectionism, overthinking, or utilizing. Like the reason like people get so attached to it, and they wouldn't necessarily know this, it's very subconscious oftentimes, but it's the fear of what is underneath it, right? It's like a layer between you and something that needs to kind of get quote unquote dealt with. And it extends like cleaning products, and it's a whole lifestyle. It's not just food. That's why it's like an eating, even with anorexia and bulimia, it's never just about food.
Yeah, for sure. What do you find are some, because I know the subconscious piece is a big part of what you help people address too. What do you find are some of the most common things that layer that's underneath you're talking about, those subconscious things that need to come out, be dealt with?
I would say I get a little bit of a mixture. A lot of the times there is a trauma history that needs to be worked through, and whether that's with me or with a different type of like mental health professional, like a licensed trauma therapist. I will find that I do tend to get a lot of clients that did go the traditional mental health route. And so now we're like kind of at a new layer and level of it. But a lot of it is like the beliefs that are underneath, and their core concepts of self. Oftentimes, because orthorexia has a lot to do with like being clean, there can be a lot of like sexual trauma underneath that, right? It's like deciding that like you're dirty or deciding that, you're no longer pure, things like that. Other times it can be like health trauma, like trauma around, especially with autoimmunity, like the body is attacking itself. It's limiting decisions of like, my body doesn't like me, like my body is attacking me. Like I can't even my own body doesn't like know what to do. And so, anything that I put inside of me hurts me. A lot of the clients' languaging is very telling, right? So you'll hear it in the patterns and the words that they're choosing to utilize. So it's like with controlling what they're putting into their body as a way to gain control over like the health conditions, or like a fear of going to the doctors because they don't trust doctors. So how can I keep myself as healthy as possible so that I don't have to trust somebody else with my body or with my mind?
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. How do you find that orthorexia can affect gut health? And you mentioned that with your own story too, but how do you find, what is that connection?
There's a few. One is that whenever you're restricting large food groups, it can create nutrient deficiencies, mineral imbalances. You're no longer feeding beneficial bacteria, so gut dysbiosis. Sometimes it's like a chicken or the egg situation because interestingly enough, the setup of the neurotransmitters, which is directly impacted by gut health, if certain neurotransmitter imbalances can kind of lend themselves to developing an eating disorder. And so, and also though, if you're usually it's coupled with so much anxiety. So the anxiety then is creating gut imbalances, and SIBO is pretty common, which is small intestinal bacterial overgrowth, because along with anxiety comes a slowing down of the motor, the vagus nerve, and like the mechanisms of action that are needed within the body to properly digest food. And so, just a whole slew of domino effects.
Yeah. And it's interesting because, I mean, and there's obviously other things with, our mental health and all that, but it's interesting. It's such an interesting conversation because, like I said, we feel like we're doing ourselves a favor by being clean and eating clean and working out and all of that. Cause that was definitely everything you said at the beginning was me. It's like perfectionist, over, working out too much, like it's all of the things. And we think we're doing ourselves a favor. But it's really like deep down, like you said, like there's these things that need to be like excavated and dealt with that has really nothing to do with food. So I would love to hear some of the biggest shifts that you've helped clients make, because really I want to say mindset shifts, but I feel like that's not the right word, because it's bigger than a mindset shift. Like this is like a rewiring that has to happen. So, but I guess if you want, we can go that route, but just some shifts that you've helped your clients or that you have seen the biggest impact to help them kind of turn the corner.
Yeah, I would say it's really this releasing and letting go of the need to control like everything, and then just like going from somebody who had like, I can't be that person, like that'll never be me, to just, well, what if that was me? Maybe that could be me. And I have had clients who have completely changed careers. I've had clients who thought they couldn't get pregnant and then they got pregnant. I've had a few clients now. I'm not sure. I tend to work with some younger clients, but I have had a few clients who lived with their parents and have moved out and started a new life for themselves. I've had like 3 clients who have moved states. So it's, and they think like most of the time people think they're coming to me for gut health issues, or they know that they want to work on the beliefs and the subconscious reprogramming and the mindset and the mental and emotional stuff. But the like in the door, the safe route is focusing on the gut first. And it's also really validating to get information on your body that shows that it's not all just like in your mind.
For sure. Yeah, no, 100%.
I mean, I'd also have had clients where we purposely don't do any lab work because they're also in a cycle of it's like needing to build trust back up between themselves and their body. And until there's like a very clear intention about what they're going to make the lab results mean and like what actions they're going to take, and it's purposeful and not just chasing the labs, we tend to like work on backing them off the labs. That goes with like Fitbit devices, tracking devices.
Yes. Yeah, no, that's a big one. That's so interesting too about the labs, because it does become just part of that cycle of I need to know this. Because I haven't had clients like that, but years ago when I have a brick and mortar Pilates studio, and years ago
Mm.
I was doing like some in-person, nutrition stuff. And for a lot of, not a lot, but a handful of them, there was no, and I'm never big on like numbers on a scale and that, but like we couldn't even talk about the scale. Like there was no,
Mhm.
for that reason, where it's like, okay, can we look at this from a different way? Because they had, eating disorders in the past, or like you said, it's like taking the data and making it mean something about themselves and their own value or self-worth, whatever. But that is such a great point about the labs, because I know that for so many, I mean, I have worked with people like that, but it wasn't a conscious thing at the time for them, just constantly chasing. So do you find that the clients, like people that come to you, do they have conscious awareness of the patterns of orthorexia, or is it kind of a mixed bag? Some do, some don't.
Usually by the time they're coming to me, most of them do seem to
Mm-hmm.
have the awareness of it, whether it's subconscious or conscious. But I tend to get clients who are kind of ready to at least begin to start to peel back the layers of
Mm-hmm.
it. And that's how
Mm-hmm.
they sort of ended up on my referral list.
Yeah, yeah, no, that makes sense. So the PTSD thing, you mentioned that. I know, and you have your own experience with PTSD. So how do you work? Because this is a whole other, I mean, it's a whole other thing. And we're talking about how these two things are related, but what are some things you help the people who have like the PTSD is part of the reason why they are experiencing
Mhm.
things like, eating disorders or orthorexia? What are some things that you're helping them with, kind of healing from that part? I mean, obviously, like disclaimer, like we are not licensed, therapists,
Uh-huh.
but from the work, both of us do this, subconscious work. But yeah, I just would love to hear some of the things you're helping them with.
A lot of the things that I'll help them with is getting to a place where they are able to sit with themselves comfortably, safely in their own experiences. It's right, there's this piece that we all kind of seem to tend to want to jump over, which is the awareness and the acceptance of where we're at, right? People, I think in our culture, we're kind of always expected to be further along in our journeys than we actually are. And even with the subconscious work, a lot of the times, like they're like, well, who would you be if you were the person who already had it? Like you just have
Mm-hmm.
to pretend to be that person. You
Yes,
just have to,
yes.
but until you can accept, and I'm not saying you can accept what happened to you and say, like, it's okay that that happened to me, but accept that that is like part of the experience that you experienced in life. You can't become the future person because you're now pulling yourself into multiple directions.
Mm,
And so one of the techniques, one of the modalities that I utilize is borrowed from internal family systems, and it's helping those parts kind of get back together. Not every person's parts want to
yeah,
merge. So it's
yeah.
it's very tailored to each person's subconscious and brains. But a lot of it's also like untangling. So it's untangling the enmeshment of different events that maybe got like anchored or layered together and helping to kind of make sense and pull them apart and reconsolidate the way that the memories present. So being able to think back to traumatizing events without getting the trigger of looking back at it
Mm-hmm.
and being able to resource up. And again, it's such a fine line. It's not saying like, I can look back at that event and be so grateful that I was like traumatized. That's not what we're talking about. And I think that that can sometimes get very lost in the conversations,
Yeah.
but it's being able to look back at that event and realize one, like, what did I actually need back then? What needs needed to get met back then? Because if they needed to get met back then they need to get met now. Like
Yeah.
there's that part of who you are and were still needs those basic needs.
Right.
And so we'll like go back into memories and we'll rewrite the script on resourcing the subconscious mind with those tools, with those resources, and then allow it to play out in real time of getting those tools and resources like in the now.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's the great thing about the energy work. And I mean, I consider the subconscious work energy work because it's still working in your energy body. It's because energy doesn't know time or space. So what you're healing
Mm-hmm.
now is helping heal then. And I think that's an important thing to remember. And I don't know if you're familiar with Dr. Joe Dispenza, but he talks about how like a memory without the emotion is wisdom. And that, I mean, that's
Mm-hmm.
essentially what you're helping people get to. Not like you have to forget it or be like, oh, this is so great that it happened, but can we think about it and not have an emotion tied to it and, hold it as wisdom instead of this like reliving
Mm-hmm.
your trauma or whatever.
Yeah, I mean, like just recently, even I've been working through layers of my stuff for almost 3 years now. And that's the other, right? People are like, oh, it's this 6-month program or this 3-month program, and
Yeah. And
everything's
then
going to
it's
be
all
like
done. Yeah.
sunflower and rain. It doesn't work that way.
Yeah.
You can have huge shifts and huge transformations in that time. And it doesn't mean that the work's going to be done. So I'm around year 3 of working through some of my stuff. And like just recently, like some of the learnings that I got by having coaches who hold me very similarly to the way that I hold my clients is one, like the parts of me that I like when I say like, oh, I wish I wasn't like traumatized, or like I wish that didn't happen to me, that I was basically telling myself like, I wish I wasn't me. Like I wish, and that's like if someone else said that to me, if someone else was like, I wish you weren't you, that's so hurtful.
Yeah,
like
for sure.
I've been constantly hurting myself by trying to like not allow that to be something that had happened in my past experiences.
Yep.
And so that was a huge opening. And then also just this appreciation that because I'm so passionate about continuing education for myself on how to work with trauma and hold, and again, we're not licensed, like I'm not treating trauma, but I'm trained in somatics and anxiety and trauma holding and reprocessing of memory. If I hadn't gone through what I've gone through, I wouldn't be so passionate about making sure people understand the difference between what is trauma informed, what is trauma trained, what is trauma licensed, what should you be looking for in a practitioner, what should I be making sure that I'm saying or not saying, and how I'm holding my clients. Like I'm so passionate on the importance of trauma information in any expert, anyone who interfaces with humans should have at least some baseline understanding.
Yeah, no, I agree. And I think, while we're not treating people, it's just providing people with the tools and the resources. I mean, that's all you are. Like you're guiding them and giving them the tools and the resources to heal themselves. I mean, you're not healing people, you're helping them heal themselves.
And that's the beauty of the work that we do, right? Is helping clients to get in touch with their innate wisdom and then allowing them to be able to use that wisdom to guide themselves.
100%. Yeah, no, 100%. And I think that, all of the tools are, they're innate. It's just you needing, someone to help you kind of get there. And I think that's, the piece you just said there is recognizing like, okay, yeah, I experienced trauma, but now, you have this mission and you have, this business that you've created around it. I think that's the other piece of the healing is being able to see, like, I don't know, the whole like, silver lining thing can be a little cliche, but I do think that's part of the wisdom part too, is okay, can we recognize the good things that came out of this? And a lot of times I'd say most of the time, I don't know. A lot of times, maybe most of the time, it's not a quick thing. Like this is like years later. Now we can, in hindsight, we can see. And so many of us, we want that automatic, like, why did this happen? I need to know why. And I need to, I need answers. The answers aren't always automatic like that. But what you were just saying is, you have this passion and you're so driven to help other people with this. And that's part of your silver lining. I'm sure there's more to it, but that's part of your silver lining is being able to use it to help other people. I think that's
and you touch on something too that's so important, because it's getting to the place where you realize that you have a choice. Like no matter what, my past is going to be my past. So I get to then be at a choosing point. Do I want to choose to question the why did this happen? Or do I want to choose to allow it in, allow myself to get to the resources, allow myself to get to the learnings? And yeah, like it doesn't mean that every day is perfect. And I'm like, I'm so healed. There are moments where, I ask the why questions still, but even watching myself in that experience now is very different than how it used to be. Because it's like accepting and allowing, okay, I'm going to throw a pity party for a little while. That's okay. Like that's actually healthy. That's healing. Like it's an expression of emotion. And if I'm having the thoughts, so if I don't allow the thoughts to express, and then that's just like the pushing of them down. So it's really just right. It's not necessarily like changing who we are. It's accepting and like loving who we are, so that then it opens up the realm of possibilities and the transformation. And that's where the transformation really does happen.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah. And like you said, it's allowing yourself to feel all the things without, attaching shame or guilt to the things that your body is asking you to feel. And I think that's a big piece of it too, because I think that there's like that part alone, like you're saying, like accepting all of these parts of you. I mean, really, if you think about, going back to what we were talking about, the orthorexia thing, that's it, like getting to the other side of that, or any sort of mental, what's the word I'm looking for? Mental health, anything on the kind of the mental health spectrum. It's, can we love these parts of us without, attaching shame or guilt or whatever to them, and allowing ourselves to feel all the things. And like the learnings for you, I was just having this conversation with a client of mine a couple weeks ago, because I'm sure you've had this too, where you have clients and sometimes it's either, they get worse before they get better, or they get better and then they get worse. Like it's never a linear thing. And having these conversations with clients where they're like, I've already done this. Like I've been here before. What? And I'm like, okay, you've done, but just because something is flaring back up or showing back up doesn't mean everything you've done up until this point was pointless and that it didn't work. But something is coming back to the surface that's asking you to recognize it. And now you have this whole different lens you can look through to address it. Like that's the beauty of it.
That's so common. It's so common. I mean, it's so common to get wrapped up in I already worked on this and I shouldn't, so common. And then exactly what you said is, it's getting to the point where you can take a breath of fresh air and realize how the vantage point is different now. Like I've driven to my friend's house a million times. It doesn't mean I'm going to stop driving over there because I've already done it before.
Yeah, for sure. 100%. And I think that's a huge perspective. Like you said, this is your third year, you're three of you working on these things. And I think for some people that can be discouraged and like, well, crap, I'm still going to be working on this. But I think that the perspective shift is just that. It's like every time we heal something, it's, we're peeling back layers of things and other layers of things are going to be exposed, come to the surface. But we now are resourced and we have resources and we have tools that we can use now especially if you've worked with a practitioner like you. I've worked with a practitioner and I have the tools and resources, and knowing what we were saying a second ago, like all this, the healing opportunities, like those are all innate, like we have those inside of us. And so, yeah, I think that that's a big perspective shift that a lot
It's also expanding like our capacity. So 100%. Each time something pops back up too, it's almost an opportunity.
Build resiliency.
And also for so many of my clients, it's the learning of like, I can be held in this experience. Like there's safety here. And with orthorexia, a lot of it is building the safety in the body, right? If I can't be safe in my own body, where else, then I'm never safe anywhere that I go.
Yeah. Yep. That's exactly it. I mean, I really feel like that's the biggest, especially for women. I feel like the biggest lesson that we can learn, that I don't even think that's the right way to say that, but I feel like that's just one of the biggest pieces of wisdom that we can take with us in our journey is that, because if, like you said, if we don't feel safe in our body, then what, like that, I think that's the beauty of this healing work, is building that safety in the body and feeling, trusting, all of that in the body.
And recognizing that when symptoms pop back up, that's just part of the human experience.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like kids get sick, right? Like you send your kids to school, they get a cold. You're not like, oh, they already dealt with the cold. Why are they getting another cold?
Pretty sure I say that too, but I'm like, okay, it's happens. Like, why are we here again? But no, it's like, okay, it's going to happen again. It's just part of life.
Sadness. I dealt with sadness last week. I'm never supposed to.
Yeah, exactly. Wait a minute. I've already been sad before. Yeah, no, it sounds ridiculous when we say it out loud, but in the moment we're like, it's like,
feels so real.
Yes. Because I do that too sometimes, where sometimes you just want to have a freaking pity party. Like I'm in and it's funny because my husband, he's way better about it now because we can talk about like emotions and stuff, but he's like the fixer. Like just would have felt like, I don't want you to fix me. Like I just, let me be in a bad mood. Like just let me be in my bad mood and just, yes, like I'll be okay. You don't have to talk to me if you don't want to talk to me, but like, it just like, give me my bad mood and I'll be over it later.
So funny too, because with orthorexia, there's a huge like avoidance, like avoiding feeling our pain, like by choosing the pain that we're going to feel in a sense or not feel. And so with the pity parties and things like that, it's so funny because we're avoiding feeling like the pity or the shame or the hurt or whatever the emotion is. But that just makes it so much worse. Yeah. Because if you just allowed yourself to, it's like jumping into the cold water, right? It's faster if you allow yourself to submerge yourself in it. And that allowance and acceptance piece is so key. Like, I'm just going to let myself have the pity party. That changes the whole dynamics of it.
100%. Yeah. And I think there's also this lesson for all of us in labeling emotions as good or bad, you know, and just allowing all of them and the full human experience, like allowing ourselves to feel all of it. Because I think that is another thing too, is I just think humans in general have a very low tolerance for being uncomfortable, right? And so if we're feeling the quote unquote bad emotions, it's, do I want to sit in my discomfort? And sometimes you need to, like, sometimes we have to sit in it to get through it on the other side. Like that's the whole, that's the whole thing.
It's also funny or fun, like with the whole concept of the memory reconsolidation, because it's sort of like re-anchoring the original like for example, a lot of people are uncomfortable in their emotions because like maybe their parents like wouldn't allow them to express, or like you had to go to your room and figure it out by yourself. And now you sort of have linked big emotions with isolation and rejection. And so it's funny when you say like the pity party, what comes to mind as a way to kind of reclaim parts of yourself in that is like, what if you actually threw a party? Like you put on the party hats and like the streamers and like the balloons and like and like literally do it. And that sort of re-anchors it in so that the next time you're feeling that same emotion, your memory goes back to like, remember when we threw that pity party?
I love that. That's so good. I love that. What a good reframe. That's so good. Yeah. Can we, and not have to make it bad. Like, that's so good. I love this so much. Okay. So for some, leaving the ladies here listening, if we're feeling like, okay, these things are resonating and maybe the orthorexia thing is striking a nerve and feeling resonant for either them or someone in their life, I guess I want to know kind of some first steps that you might recommend for someone if there's like this conscious awareness of it and it's like, okay, well now how do I undo this or like stop it in its tracks? What would you say would be the first couple or few steps for them to take?
I think it's really important to recognize that you likely got yourself, that's a terrible choice of words, but likely the situation came about because you thought you had to do it alone. And that community is such a huge part of healing. And it doesn't always have to be like a 1-for-1 of like, for example, if somebody's going to work with me, oftentimes content isn't actually needed. So if like there's a fear of letting go around the food stuff, like we might talk about like a different topic or a different emotional experience, and that's subconsciously linked. But I would say like in addition to perusing some like resources and getting external support, the awareness is such an interesting part, and like starting to like ask yourself questions and maybe like dig some holes into your plot line. Right. So like, for what purpose am I doing this? Like for what, what emotion am I not wanting to feel right now? Try to avoid the why questions. The why questions tend to link us more back into the rabbit holes. But I like, for what purpose? Like, what is this doing for me? And most people be like, it's doing nothing for me. And yeah, that's kind of true in some sense. But if you're doing it, it's doing something. And again, it kind of comes back to like the negative emotions. Once we could detach the story of negative, positive, it's doing something. It's whether it's protective. So talking to yourself, you can even give it a name it, like anything, like Angelica, Bobby, like Samantha, and allow yourself to sort of like start to have a two-way conversation with it. Like, what do you want to say to this part of you, and allow that part of you to like hear it, and then assume like that part and allow that part to express, because that part usually doesn't get to express as much, even though it's sort of showing up in the symptomology, right? It's showing up as symptoms because you haven't been listening.
Right. Yeah, exactly. I love the parts integration work. I haven't used that in a long time in my coaching, but that's such good work, the parts integration. And I think like you're saying, like the naming it part, right? Part of the parts integration is so helpful in being able to look at things objectively and kind of like separating yourself from that part while still connecting with that part. So I think that's such good advice.
As I'm hearing you reflect that back to me, another layer to, if that's like not enough separation, is if I was watching my friend going through this, if I saw my daughter going through this, like how would I want to navigate it with them?
That's good. Yeah. Yeah. And I think it goes back to the part where you were talking about your own experience and making a comment like wanting you to be a different person, like thinking about the things you're thinking and saying. Yeah, especially if you have a daughter. I mean, I have a daughter too. And it's like that for me, that's enough. If I was thinking and saying these things and like separating that part, like, okay, like something needs to shift. It would not be okay if that was like saying it to my daughter or whatever.
Yeah. It's like really just finding the opening, which might be different for each individual person. Any micro movement you can take is going to be a step towards.
Yeah. I love that. Yeah. This is such an important conversation, Carly. Thank you for the work you're doing and your commitment to help people work through all of these layers and parts of themselves. I have one more question that I want to ask you, but before I do, can you let everybody know where they can find out more about you and the work that you do and follow along?
Yeah, I'm on Instagram and it's at Carly in Focus. And then my website is www.carlyinfocus.com.
Perfect. Okay. And of course, I'll have the links to that in the show notes. So you can go check it out and give Carly a follow. And if anything we've been talking about resonates, then go send her a message and get some support. You don't have to do it alone, right? The community is important. Okay, the last question I want to ask you that I like to ask everybody, what do you think is the most important thing you can do to live with purpose?
Ooh, the most important, that's such a good question. That's so juicy. The most important thing that you can do to live with purpose is to live in authenticity and integrity of yourself and your truth.
That's beautiful. Thank you, Carly. Such a good answer. Short and sweet and to the point and punchy. So it's such a good answer. Thank you for spending time with us and sharing all of your nuggets of wisdom with us.
My pleasure.